Manchester City collapse in calamitous defeat at Paris Saint-Germain. It ought to have been over. In previous times it surely would have been. Erling Haaland had tapped in from close range shortly after Jack Grealish, on as a substitute, had broken the deadlock. There were 53 minutes on the clock and Manchester City looked ready to breathe life into their ailing Champions League campaign. And yet the current edition of Pep Guardiola's serial Premier League champions have come to lack the old certainties. They are vulnerable to high-tempo flurries from the opposition. The idea for them was to prove they were back, having moved on from that horror run of 1 win in 13 from the end of October. They had won 4 of their previous 5, instead, they fell apart. Again. Paris Saint-Germain were electrified by Bradley Barcola, who made their first goal for Ousmane Dembélé, on as a substitute, and scored the second himself. Guardiola had reshuffled his defense at halftime when Ruben Dias was forced off with injury, Rico Lewis entering at left back, Josko Gvardiol moving into the middle. City were a shambles at the back. Poor on the ball. The spaces opening up with alarming regularity. No protection from the midfield where City were outnumbered. The PSG goal for 3-2 had been signposted, and it came after another Guardiola tweak to the backline with John Stones coming on in the center, Gvardiol reverting to the left, and Lewis switching to right back. They continued to look like strangers. T was a Vitinha free kick. Stones missed his header, and there was João Neves stooping beyond the far post to score. The power in his diving header was too much for Ederson. The prospect of a City equalizer was remote to non-existent. It was over. PSG ran riot in the closing stages, creating a clutch of clear openings, and they were value for the late fourth, bent home by Goncalo Ramos. Initially, the goal was ruled out for offside, but the VAR spotted the touch that sent him through had come off Gvardiol. PSG are back in business. It has been a remorselessly trying campaign for them, their schedule so tough. They have had Arsenal and Bayern Munich away, PSV Eindhoven, Atletico Madrid, and now City at home. They kicked off below the cutoff of the playoff rounds, and they will still need a draw in the final round of group ties at Stuttgart next Wednesday. What about City? If they defeat Club Brugge at home next Wednesday, they will book their place in the playoffs, but nobody can expect them to do so on this evidence. Their Champions League season had already been scarred by the defeats at Sporting and Juventus. The draw at home against Feyenoord too, when they surrendered a 3-0 lead. Now this, the second half was sensational. This raucous venue rocking, PSG throbbing with intensity. The first period had felt like an extended sizing-up exercise. That said, there were chances, including some big ones, none bigger than that for Fabian Ruiz in the 27th minute. He was all alone in the box following a corner, City's defense having broken down, but his shot was cleared off the line by Gvardiol. The margins were tight. PSG had the ball in the net before the interval when Barcola teed up Achraf Hakimi, his shot flashing home with the aid of a deflection, but the VAR pulled it back for a marginal offside against Nuno Mendes in the build-up. Neves had headed high when unmarked at the back post on 11 minutes, for City in the first half. Kevin De Bruyne and Savinho got into good positions but were thwarted by big Gianluigi Donnarumma blocks. Haaland could not quite get over a header, allowing the goalkeeper to save. City threw off the shackles at the start of the second half, making bold runs, and, in what felt like the blink of an eye, they were 2 goals to the good. The first was fired by Manuel Akanji, pulling a stop-and-go move on Mendes and getting his cross in from the byline. Donnarumma blocked well again, from Bernardo Silva at close range, but, after a double deflection off Marquinhos and Donnarumma, the ball fell to Grealish. The second was all about a striding diagonal run by Matheus Nunes and a little bit more fortune when Grealish's cutback was played inadvertently into Haaland by the stretching Neves. Haaland could not miss from point-blank range. The park was not silent for long. Barcola had been criticized for his Champions League performances. Here was the answer. He was too skillful for Nunes, streaking past him and away from Mateo Kovacic to square for Dembélé to score. And he was so quick to react after Desire Doué had cut inside and rattled the crossbar with a curling shot. Barcola's first-time finish was steered inside the far corner. PSG pressed hard on to the front foot. City's head spun. Dembélé nutmegged Silva to crash a shot against the crossbar and, after Neves's goal, they poured on the pain. Dembélé had a goal ruled out for an offside and Ederson denied Ramos at close quarters. Ramos and PSG were not finished. Arsenal on verge of knockout stage as Havertz ensures win over Dinamo Zagreb. Job done for Mikel Arteta. After the week he has had, the last thing the Arsenal manager would have wanted was another frantic finale to a home fixture. For much of this contest, after Declan Rice had fired the hosts in front after only 72 seconds, It seemed the Gunners may have to go the distance as they huffed and puffed but couldn't find a second goal to see off a spirited Dinamo Zagreb side managed by their defensive master Fabio Cannavaro. A collective sigh of relief greeted the second goal from Kai Havertz, his 14th of the season, when it came 20 minutes before the end, as Martin Odegaard added a third late on to virtually ensure Arsenal will finish in the top 8 and avoid the need for a playoff next month. With a warm-weather training camp in Dubai lined up instead, after their early exit from the FA Cup, it could do Arteta's weary squad the world of good in the long run. It's a massive step. This puts us in a really strong position ahead of our final match against Girona next week, Arteta said. If we earn the right to do the training camp, that would be great. We've had a busy schedule and there have been a lot of demands on the players, so if we can achieve that it would be great. While their progress in this competition has been pretty smooth so far, there was a reminder of fans' frustrations with Arsenal's mixed fortunes in the Premier League when it was revealed that a message had been added to a mural outside the ground featuring the co-chair Josh Kroenke and the former midfielder Santi Cazorla. "Time to splash some cash, Josh," it read. Kroenke was watching from the stands as Alexander Zinchenko performed well on only his 4th start of the season despite rumors he could leave the club this month, but saw Raheem Sterling struggle until he was replaced by Ethan Nwaneri in the second half. The England forward was signed on loan from Chelsea at the last minute during the summer but has contributed only 1 goal so far, with Arsenal now expected to attempt to bolster their squad, having been linked this week with a move for Wolves' Mateusz Cunha. Dinamo have recovered well from the 9-2 mauling they endured against Bayern Munich in their opening match and find themselves level on points with Manchester City with still a realistic chance of a playoff, with 1 game to play against Milan. But having not played competitively since mid-December because of the winter break in their domestic league and under the command of the former Italy defender Cannavaro for the first time since he replaced Nenad Jellica, it was perhaps no surprise they took time to find their feet. Arteta had urged his players to take out the frustrations of their draw here against Aston Villa on Saturday, and they took him at his word. Little more than a minute had passed when they found a way through Dynamo's defense after Gabriel Martinelli's cross was teed up expertly inside the area by Havertz for Rice to lash into the net. Rice and Gabriel Magalhaes could not take further opportunities, with the Brazilian defender somehow missing the target from a corner routine that led to a mass of mocking arms being waved by the boisterous traveling support behind the goal. Cannavaro described this beforehand as the biggest match of my coaching career, and was pleased his side made it to halftime without further damage. Sterling went into the book at the start of the second half after struggling to spring on to a through ball, and instead clattered into Maxime Bernauer. He was joined by Jurrien Timber soon after as Dinamo succeeded in disrupting Arsenal's rhythm. Cannavaro said, "I asked them to work together and the second half was much better. But playing against this level of team is not easy." Arteta turned to Nwaneri to provide some inspiration off the bench, and the 17-year-old was given a rousing reception when he replaced Sterling, having missed the past 3 weeks with a muscle injury. But Martinelli was the architect of their second goal when he cut in from the left flank and picked out Havertz for a simple header that helped to settle his manager's nerves. T was the 500th goal Arsenal have scored since Arteta took over as manager 5 years ago. Odegaard made it 501 in stoppage time as he swept home a cross from Leandro Trossard to all but confirm their progress to the knockout stages for the second season in succession, after losing in the quarter-finals against Bayern Munich last year.